Good morning, boys and girls. I'm glad to see you again. I've got another special friend here today. You met my dog Gideon before. This is my other dog, Evie. Evie's a little bit younger than Gideon, so sometimes she can be a little more hard to handle. But she's glad to be here too. Can you say hi, Evie? Shall we get started? Oh, it's called music. Clap your hands if you love stories. Clap your hands, I know you do. I'm so glad that we could be together. Glad to share a story time with you. You ready for a story, Evie? I bet you are. Well, our first story today is called The Lazy Princess. It's about a young lady who was very good and very sweet, but very not so fond of doing much work. Once upon a time, there was a woman who had one daughter. And that daughter, the young lady, was good in most ways. She was gentle, she was sweet, she had good manners. But getting her to work was somewhat difficult. No matter how much she was scolded or punished, she just would not do her chores. And one day, her mother was so frustrated that she was yelling at her at the top of her lungs so loud. And it just so happened that there was a carriage driving by outside. And it just so happened that that carriage was the royal carriage with the prince inside. And he pulled the carriage to a halt. And he called out, "Good woman, your daughter must be very naughty to have you yelling so loudly." Oh, the mother was so embarrassed. She doesn't like to be caught yelling at her child. And so she said, "Oh, you misunderstand. She's not naughty. It's that she works so hard. See, I'm begging her to stop working. If I give her 3 bags of flax," that's a kind of plant, "she'll spin it all in one day into fine thread. And then the next day, she'll have all of that thread woven into cloth. And the day after that, all of that cloth will be made into shirts. She works herself to the bone." And the prince, listening to this, "That's the kind of young lady I'd like to have for my wife." And so he took the young lady with him into his carriage and took her to the castle where he introduced her to his mother, the queen. Now, the queen was very impressed with such a young lady and liked the idea of having her for her daughter-in-law. But she said, "I need to see for myself." And she gave her 3 bags of flax from the royal stores. And she said, "This must be spun into thread by morning." Well, the young lady was aghast. She didn't really like to spin at all, let alone spin so fast that she could have it all done by the next day. And she cried. She cried as she sat by the spinning wheel. But as she was crying, an old woman suddenly appeared beside her and said, "What seems to be the problem, my young lady?" And she explained the situation, and the old woman said, "Never you mind that. I will spin the flax, but in exchange, I want you to make sure to invite me, old woman Bigfoot, to your wedding." The young lady looked down and saw that the old woman did have very, very big feet. But she agreed because she really had no other choice. And old Mother Bigfoot sat down and began to work that spinning wheel as fast as she could. And it spun and spun and spun. And by the next morning, all of the flax had been spun. And it was such good quality. The queen was very impressed. And she said, "Oh, you're going to be a wonderful daughter-in-law, a wonderful wife for my son. I would like, though, to see all of this thread woven into cloth. You could do that by tomorrow. I've heard that you can." And the young lady cried. Because if there was anything she didn't like more than she didn't like spinning, it was weaving. She tried, she just wasn't very good at it. And the more she tried to weave, the more the thread broke, and she cried harder and harder until she suddenly noticed that there was another old woman standing in the room with her. Only this woman, instead of having very large feet, had very broad shoulders and hips. And the old woman said, "Why are you crying?" And the young lady explained to her. And the old woman said, "Never you worry. I will take care of this, but you must promise that you will invite me to your wedding." Well, of course, the young lady would invite her to the wedding. And so the old woman wove and wove, and by the next morning, all of that thread had been woven into cloth. And the queen was even more impressed. And she said, "Only one thing's left to do. I want you to take this cloth and turn it into shirts for my son. Royal shirts for the prince. All by tomorrow morning." Oh, the young lady was upset because she was not a good seamstress, and she was definitely not a quick seamstress. So she started to try to sew, and it wasn't working until she suddenly noticed that there was another old woman in the room with her. And this woman had very large lip. Her lower lip was very, very broad. And the young woman explained to her what was going on when the old woman asked. And the old woman said, "Don't worry a thing about it. I will take care of it, but you must promise to invite me to your wedding." And of course the young woman agreed. And so the old woman began to sew, and she would lick the thread and hold it in her mouth and sew and sew and sew. And by the next morning, all of that cloth had been made into shirts. And the queen was very impressed and said, "Of course, now we can have the wedding. My son will be dressed in style, and I could ask for nothing more of a royal daughter-in-law." And it was the biggest wedding the kingdom had ever seen, and people came from far and wide. And the queen sat with her new daughter-in-law at the table, and they greeted all the guests. When up to the table came the old woman with big feet, Old Mother Bigfoot. Now, the queen was perhaps not as polite as the young lady was, because the queen said, without even thinking, "Dear me, whatever befell you to give you such enormous feet?" And the old woman sighed and said, "My feet grew this way because I spend all day doing nothing but spinning flax into thread with the spinning wheel, pushing the pedal with my feet, and they just grew and grew." And then the next old woman came with the broad shoulders and the broad hips. And the queen said, "Oh, my, whatever happened to make you so broad?" And the old woman said, "This is what comes because all I do all day long is to sit at my loom, weaving and doing naught else." And the third woman came with the lips swollen and red. And the queen said, "Are you all right, my dear? Whatever happened to cause this?" And the old woman said, "Your Highness, this is an unfortunate byproduct of the fact that I do little else but sew all day long, holding the needles in my mouth, holding the thread in my mouth. Over time, this is the result." The queen was so shocked by these things that she looked at her beautiful young royal daughter-in-law and said, "Young lady, I will not have you ever spin, weave, or sew again. We must protect you. We must save you from these tragedies." Now, the princess was very happy about this. I want you to know, this is not a story that says that you must imitate the princess, boys and girls, because being lazy does not usually end up with us sitting on a throne in a royal palace. But in this case, the prince and the princess lived happily ever after. All right, let me see everybody's hands. Can I see your hands? Did you wash your hands today? Did you wash them right? All right, let me see them anyway. And then after this, you can go wash them again if you want. Let me see your hands and wiggle your fingers at me. And then you're going to put them up here. We're going to say, "On my head, my hands I place. On my shoulders, on my face, on my hips, and at my side. Then behind me, they will hide. I will hold them up so high." How high can you make them go? "Quickly make my fingers fly. Hold them out in front of me, then swiftly clap them. 1, 2, 3. Should we do that one more time? On my head, my hands I place. On my shoulders, on my face, on my hips, and at my side. Then behind me they will hide. I will raise them up so high. Quickly make my fingers fly. Hold them out in front of me. Swiftly clap them. 1, 2, 3. Good job. This is the story of the little boy who cried wolf. Once upon a time, there was a shepherd. And that shepherd had a little boy. And one day that shepherd decided that his little boy was old enough to watch the sheep all by himself without any help. And he said, "Son, I want you to stay here and take care of these sheep and make sure they don't get into any trouble and don't wander away. And make sure that no wild animals come and hurt them. No wolves, no lions. You take good care of our sheep." And the little boy said, "Yes, Father, but what should I do if a wolf does come?" And the father said, "Well, in that case, I want you to just call as loud as you can, 'Wolf, wolf!' And the other villagers and I will come and help you chase the wolf away." And so the little boy agreed. And the father went over the village, over the hill to the village, where he could take care of some other business. And the little boy stayed with the sheep and watched them. The thing about watching sheep is that it's not really all that interesting a thing to do. Sheep, for the most part, just sort of wander around and eat grass and go bah at each other. And there's not really much left for the little boy to do. And so he began to get bored. And sometimes when we get bored, we come up with ideas that aren't so good. And this little boy came up with an idea that really wasn't such a good idea. He put his hands to his mouth and called out, "Wolf! Wolf!" just to see what would happen. Well, naturally, what happened was that the father and all the other villagers came racing over the hill as quickly as they could to try to see what they could do to help. But there was no wolf. And they were not very happy with that little boy. They went back to the village grumbling, grumbling, grumbling. And the father said, "Son, that was a very naughty thing to do. You must never, ever call to tell us that there's a wolf here unless there's an actual wolf here. Do you understand?" And the boy said, "Yes, Father, I understand." And so the father went back to town, leaving the little boy to work some more. But as a few days went on, the boy began to get bored again, and he forgot about his promise. And he decided that he wanted to play another game with the adults in the village. And so he put his hands to his mouth and even louder cried, "Wolf! Wolf! Wolf!" And of course, all of the villagers came racing over the hill to try to help. But there was no wolf. And oh, they were even madder this time. They said, "You have to stop your son from doing that." And the shepherd said, "Didn't you understand me the last time? You must never, ever, ever play games like this. You must never call unless there is an actual wolf." And the boy was sorry, or he said he was sorry. And the shepherd went back to the village. A few days later, I think you can guess what happened. "Wolf! Wolf!" And of course, here came the villagers. Oh, but they were starting to get very, very angry, and they stormed away when they saw there was no wolf. And the shepherd was so angry that he sent his boy to bed that night without any dinner at all. The little boy had learned his lesson. He was not going to play that prank ever again. He was hungry that night, and it made him have bad dreams to go to bed without dinner. So he was never, ever, ever going to play that kind of a joke. What do you see? What is that creeping over the hill? Is it Is it a wolf? I didn't know that wolves were that big. Wolves are actually very, very big, boys and girls, just so you know. They may not be this big, but they are really big. Bigger than a dog. And this wolf was getting closer and closer to the flock, and the little boy screamed as loud as he could, "Help! Help! Wolf! Wolf!" And do you think those villagers came running? They said to each other, "That boy is trying to play a trick on us again. We are not going to go this time. We're not going to race over the hill, stumbling over our own feet, just so he can laugh at us again." And so they didn't come. And the little boy screamed and screamed as loud as he could, but it was no use. The wolf ate all of the sheep. And then, I'm very, very sad to say, I'm sure that everyone was very upset later when they came, but here's the thing, boys and girls. Nobody really has an easy time believing a liar, even when he's telling the truth. Do you remember the song, "I Know an Old Lady Who Swallowed a Fly"? Remember how it goes? Do you remember all the animals? Think you can help me sing along? I bet you remember them. Here we go. I know an old lady who swallowed a fly. I don't know why she swallowed the fly. Perhaps she'll die. I know an old lady who swallowed a spider that wriggled and jiggled and tickled inside her. She swallowed the spider to catch the fly, but I don't know why she swallowed the fly. Perhaps she'll die. I know an old lady who swallowed a bird. How absurd to swallow a bird. She swallowed the bird to catch the spider. She swallowed the spider to catch the fly, but I don't know why she swallowed the fly. Perhaps she'll die. I know an old lady who swallowed a cat. How about that? She swallowed the cat. She swallowed the cat to catch the bird. She swallowed the bird to catch the spider that wriggled and jiggled and tickled inside her. She swallowed the spider to catch the fly, but I don't know why she swallowed the fly. Perhaps she'll die. I know an old lady who swallowed a dog. My, what a hog to swallow a dog. She swallowed the dog to catch the cat. She swallowed the cat to catch the bird. She swallowed the bird to catch the spider that wriggled and jiggled and tickled inside her. She swallowed the spider to catch the fly, but I don't know why she swallowed the fly. Perhaps she'll die. I know an old lady who swallowed a goat. Just opened her throat and swallowed a goat. She swallowed the goat to catch the dog. She swallowed the dog to catch the cat. She swallowed the cat to catch the bird. She swallowed the bird to catch the spider that wriggled and jiggled and tickled inside her. She swallowed the spider to catch the fly, but I don't know why she swallowed the fly. Perhaps she'll die. I know an old lady who swallowed a cow. I don't know how she swallowed the cow. She swallowed the cow to catch the goat. She swallowed the goat to catch the dog. She swallowed the dog to catch the cat. She swallowed the cat to catch the bird. She swallowed the bird to catch the spider that wriggled and jiggled and tickled inside her. She swallowed the spider to catch the fly, but I don't know why she swallowed the fly. I guess she'll die. I know an old lady who swallowed a horse. She died, of course. Well, I am very, very glad that you joined us at Storytime today. I'm glad that you got to meet Evie. Evie, can you say bye-bye? And I hope that you come share some more stories with me again next time. Can we do that? We got one more thing to do, Evie. Can you help me with it? Let me see you reach for the ceiling. And touch the floor. Stand up again. Let's do some more. Touch your head. And now your knees. Up to your shoulders. Like this, you see. Reach for the ceiling. And touch the floor. That's all there is. There isn't any more. If I was with you right now, I could give you a hand stamp with a puppy stamp. And you can go draw a puppy on your hand. But wash your hands. Bye.